Hello, Quinn Donovan here. I am starting a segment on my YouTube show called Get to Know Quinn Hour. So, this will be my first video where I will just come and share some background about me, some experiences that I had, and just where you can get to know me. I want to connect with people. I want people to know my story and hear where I've come from and how far I've come to get to where I'm at within myself and in my life. And so I had got the intuitive hit to do a segment called Get to Know Quinn Hour. It may not always be a full hour. It may be 30 minutes, 20 minutes, depends on what is most optimal for me to share at that time. But I want to get to know you as well. So also feel free to share with me some of your background. So that's what I'm going to share with you today, is just a little bit to kick off the Let's Get to Know Quinn hour. Let's get to know Quinn. Let's see, who is this Quinn? Who am I? Who have I been? Where did I come from? So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a backstory of where I've come from, and we'll just kind of start from there of how you can get to know me. So I come from an Italian-Irish family. I'm Italian, Irish, and English Wales. My father was Irish and my mother was Italian and English Wales. And I grew up in a very small town, probably at that time was maybe about 10,000 people. And so everybody knew everybody was related to everybody was in everybody's business, right? And a lot of the stuff that went around that town was not true of what people would hear about you. But anyway, I come from a small southern town in Colorado, and it was a nice town. I mean, it's better now, but at the time, it was okay. There wasn't really much to do. Growing up, I have brothers and sisters. So I have an older stepbrother and an older stepsister, and I have two younger brothers. And I was kind of the one in the middle because one, I had a different dad than everybody, and the four siblings all have the same dad but different mom. So I was kind of like the black sheep or the middle person or the odd man out or the different person, and I was treated differently. I was looked at differently. I was talked to differently, and I was loved differently. And it was very interesting how that all played out, and all I really wanted to do was fit in, right? And even when I tried to fit in, they were like, no, you can't fit in. I have a pretty good idea of what that's about, but I'm not going to share that today. But anyway, so I grew up there, and my childhood was okay, but definitely trauma. There was alcohol abuse. My father was an alcoholic, and he left about 6 or 9 months after I was born. So of course I've had to heal and from abandonment. I've had abandonment issues, and I've had to heal from them. Thankfully, I have. And my mother was also an alcoholic too, but they were functioning. They weren't severe alcoholics to where they didn't go to work or they didn't, take care of their responsibilities and their children. Hold on, my dog's walking around. Shia, stay over here. Get over here. Come on. Good old Shia. Like, I'll show you. This is Shia. Anyway, we're at the dog park here in Westminster, Colorado. Stay here. And so anyway, sidetrack squirrel there, right? Family. My father abandoned me. Where was I? And then my stepdad came along, and because I was raised with my stepdad, I didn't know that I had a different father. I didn't learn about that until I was, hello, jogger. Anyway, I didn't know that I had a different father until I was about 8 or 9 years old. And it was a very big, huge shock to me. And I, the dad who I thought was my dad, I did not like him. I didn't feel loved by him. And he was a very scary and violent man. And he was an alcoholic as well. I mean, yeah, he was good when he wasn't drunk. There was times where he could be a really good person and feel love, but then that could change in any given circumstance. And yes, he did love me as his own and he wanted to adopt me, but my mom didn't want that. And there was a time where I was just like, because their last name's Pachoric and mine's Donovan. And I was just like, well, why is my last name different? Like, I want to change my name to Pachoric so I can fit in, so I could be a part of the family. Like, I just feel like left out, or I don't feel like I fit in. Okay. And my eyes are watering out here, or I could be crying too. But I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in with my family. And then I finally learned that the dad I thought was my dad, my father, wasn't. And so then I was just like, who's my father? And then I just felt abandoned. I felt like, why didn't this man want me? Like, why didn't he want to be a part of my life? I did end up years later going and getting that answer, which I'll share with you in another video, but it was very heartbreaking and very confusing, and who am I and where do I belong and where do I fit in, because I don't fit in with this family, so it was just like, okay. So then, teenage years, I start hanging out with some girls that aren't the best of influences. So in my teenage years, starting at 13, I started drinking and I started smoking weed and I started experimenting. Thankfully, I was not experimenting in sexual acts because I didn't lose my virginity until I was 18 years old. So go me, right? And I also had the belief that I wasn't going to have sex until I was married. Well, thankfully, I let that go because I'd still be a virgin because I'm not married. But I do have a daughter now, so it worked out. Anyway, I hung out with a group of girls that, I thought were my friends, and they turned out to end up backstabbing me about 2 years into the friendship. And in 8th grade, starting 8th grade at the junior high was miserable because it was that summer before that all that shit went down with me and them. And really what it came down to was a girl being jealous of me. Being very jealous of me and insecure with her own self. So in order to make herself feel better, it was to kick me out of the group and turn the friends against me, and ultimately almost turn the town against me, like all the kids in the town, so it was a bullying situation. And my first, I think I went to 8th grade for 2 weeks, and I was like, I cannot do this. Like, I would have to watch my back every day. I probably would have been in a fight with someone every day, because the girl that kicked me out, I ended up fighting her twice and I kicked her ass. And it's like, those people didn't know who they were fucking with. Like, they thought I was just this timid little girl who didn't know anything and was weak and all this and that. But if they understood what I was dealing with at home, I had to be strong. I was the oldest of my 2 brothers who lived with me and my mom. The other 2 step siblings had lived with their mom. And I had to be strong. Like, I couldn't show any signs of weakness. And it was like, I had tons of anger in me. So if someone fucked with me, like, they would get their ass kicked, or they'd be leaving hurting, bleeding. So yeah, I had my fair share of fights as a teenager. And once I got kicked out of the group, I ended up going to a Catholic school, 8th grade to senior year, which definitely was the best thing for me. I remember when I before going to the Catholic school, they didn't start until after Labor Day, and prior to that we were having a wedding or something. And so I just remember my life had like fallen apart. Like my friend group, like the people I hung out with, like everything just like fell apart. And I was not liked. I was not loved. I was kicked to the curb. I was abandoned. I was stabbed in the back. I was kicked while I was down, all of that. And I remember sitting, my mom had went to go help set up the wedding, and I was sitting at home by myself and I was watching angels in the outfield. Oh my God, I want to cry talking about this because it's very emotional. But I remember sitting there watching that movie, Angels in the Outfield, and I'll tell you that an angel had come to me that day. And I mean, I grew up Catholic and we went to church, and another grandma on the other side would take us to a Christian church, which I honestly really like the Christian church a lot better than a Catholic church. I mean, who wouldn't really? So I enjoyed that. So I knew about God and I loved God and I had prayed to God and I read the little kids' Bibles, and, you know, I had that relationship with him. And when I hung out with those girls for those couple of years, I lost that. So I was there in my living room crying like, God, please help me. Like, if you can't help me now, you know, please help me. Like, please help me. I'm so sorry for abandoning you. You know, I'm sorry to be letting you down. Like, please just send me a sign that everything's going to be okay. I want to just cry about this whole thing. But he sent an angel. Like, one of them angels came. One of my angels came, and it was just like, it was better for you to get away from those girls, because those girls were not good for you. They were corrupting you, and you are such a lovable, bright, shiny person that you don't need them. And they didn't value what they had in you. So really, it's their loss. And after that whole conversation, I can't remember everything, but I mean, it was along the lines like, you're going to be okay. Like, get God back into your life and start praying and start working on yourself and bettering yourself and changing your mind. Do you hear the birds singing? And so after that, I felt better about going to the new school, because I mean, there was only like 3 schools you can go to that were local in Trinidad. And the Catholic school, everybody made fun of them. You know, everybody made fun of the Catholic kids who went to the Catholic school. And when I got there, I'll tell you, I reunited with a best friend that I had 2 years before we grew up together, and she started hanging out with the bad crowd, and I hung out with another bad crowd, and then she ended up being at the school along with another girl that I was friends with in elementary school that we ended up going different ways. And so it was so funny and interesting how we ended up reconnecting at this Catholic school, because I mean, really, that was the only alternative. Honestly, nobody wanted to go to alternative school because apparently it was just a thing that you just didn't really do much with. But it was quite the experience of growing up in that town, and the things that I've had to overcome at a really young age to better my life, to be a better person. And I mean, it really all started with getting my faith back in God, getting my faith back into myself. And I'm grateful that I went to the Catholic school, because I was able to be with God again. Like, I was able to call on to the universe and to source and to whatever you want to call it to help me get through those difficult times. And I mean, that whole situation with the girls, that girl group ruined me for friendships later in adulthood with women. And it wasn't up until about 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, that I was healed enough to actually start having relationships and building relationships with women, because I had the belief that they were bad and they were going to turn on me, or they were going to be jealous. They'd pretend to be my friend, and then one minute then they'll think they're my friend, and then the next they're stabbing me in the back because they're jealous of me in some way or something, you know? So it was quite the blessing. It was one of those blessings in disguise that you get when God or the universe or source moves you out of a situation. And I mean, there was lots of fighting in my household, and even once my mom divorced my stepdad, he went off to live on his own, and we lived she got a house built, and the fighting still continued though. Like the fighting still continued. Like no matter if we got therapy or not, we hated going to therapy. We were teenagers. We didn't want to go to therapy, and we were fucked up, like for real, like emotionally fucked up. But we put such a facade on, we put these different masks on trying to pretend that everything's okay, but then we lash out at each other and we say hurtful things to each other and we pull out knives gonna kill ourselves in front of each other, like it was a very dysfunctional family, and we didn't ever really get help. And it wasn't until later, like a few years later, years later, I wanted to get help. It was too much baggage to be hanging on to, and I've had a lot of dark nights of the soul, a lot of pain and suffering to go through, to release it, to be done with it. So, I mean, my true transformation and commitment to myself to be better started that 8th grade year, because I was like, I'm a better person than this. I can do better. And as long as I have God on my side and his guidance and his love, I'm good. I'm okay, because he loves me unconditionally. The universe loves me unconditionally. And so it was really a blessing, how things happen. I mean, we don't really know that. We don't know that at the time that it's happening. We're just like, oh, our world's ending and we're not enough and we're unworthy and nobody wants us and we're not loved, But I just was like, I can't live like this anymore. And so then as I grew up, I continued the friendship with one of the girls that I had gotten back in contact with at the school. And we were friends for 30 years up until about 8 years ago. My initiation. Oh, that'll be another story. That'll be another, get to know Quinn hour. But I mean, I went through high school pretty well. I got back in touch with myself and I worked on myself and I just continued to be a better person than I was yesterday. And I just knew that if I did things for good, that good things were going to happen to me. And when I did things bad, or I lied or cut corners, then it didn't really turn out that well. So I've been learning this all the time, every day for so long, for 30 years. And it's just crazy because if you don't know any of this stuff or you don't learn about it, you can't come to those Jesus moments, you can't come to the awareness and be like, wow, or you can't come to the blessing of what was in that situation, right? So I graduated high school and I went to school for graphic design. I initially wanted to go to school for business management because I wanted to own my own business. I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to have my own thing. And Shia, you stay over here. And so, I wanted to go to Fort Collins because I loved Fort Collins, Colorado. I love Fort Collins and it was such a cool town. I had fun, and I just loved the scenery and it was just beautiful. It was like moving from Trinidad to another Trinidad, but better and bigger and better. And so, they didn't have I would have to take all these math classes and I was not trying to take more math classes. I was so happy to just be done. And then I had to take another math class and I was like, what the fuck? I don't want to take all these math classes to run a business, right? And so So I ended up meeting, my brother was in a band, my stepbrother was in a band. He was the bass player. They were called the J Creepers. And it was a drummer, Louie, and Chuck as the singer and guitarist. And so we were like their groupies. We were the biggest fans. And the singer had a girlfriend who was going to the college down there, and she was bringing back some artwork and had like projects. And I'm a creative person. I like to do art and create stuff like that. So what she was doing and the assignments that she was going through sounded very cool. So I was like, oh my God, maybe I'll switch my major to graphic design. So that's what I did. I switched to graphic design. And well, Fort Collins didn't have a good graphic design program. So it was like, well, I guess I'm going to an art school. And so I ended up choosing to go to the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, and they actually had moved campuses. They were down in southern Denver, and then they moved to Lakewood. And so I moved to Arvada, Colorado, and went to school in Lakewood. And I moved at the time, I think it was my senior year. I got a boyfriend. First boyfriend, long-term boyfriend. His name was Jeremy, but he went by Jer, but I called him Jeremy. He was like my first love. He's the one who I lost my virginity to at 18. So it was like I couldn't not graduate high school without doing that act. And here comes another walker. Anyway, so I did that. Went to graphic design school at the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. We're gonna pause. She's okay.
Hello, puppy.
Shia, stay down. Okay, let her go. Shia, come here. Can you stay here? You stay right here, okay? This trail's pretty active, isn't it, today? Anyway, so I graduated high school, and then 2 weeks after graduating high school, I started summer school at the junior college down there and majored in graphic design. I graduated in 2003. I spent 2 years there because I was like, I'm trying to get the hell out of Trinidad. I'm trying to go make a life for myself because I knew that my life was not going to be down there. I knew I was not going to stay down there. Like, some people don't ever leave. Like, they'll drive to Pueblo or they'll drive to Springs or, they'll go and travel a little bit, but they don't leave Trinidad. Like, they stay in that hole. Like, Trinidad's like a hole. It's a hole that is really hard to get out. A lot of drug activity goes on there. I mean, I've had so many friends lost to suicide, drug overdose, alcoholism, people killing and shooting each other, stabbing and shooting each other. Like, I have so many friends. Like, in high school, I probably lost about 50 people. It was fucking crazy. And that's how corrupt that place is. Now, they got tons of dispensaries. So yeah, that's great. It's like, oh, they have access to cannabis now, but like, there's some major drugs going through there too. So I need to get out of that shit. I cannot be here. And I really enjoyed my time. So I moved to Denver once I graduated, and the boyfriend came with me, and he was supposed to go to Metro, and he was supposed to get a job, and he didn't have a car. And so I was like going to school, working, and he was just sitting at home playing fucking video games. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you need to get a job. Like, I am not your mom. I'm not taking care of you. You did not bring a car up here. We only have one car. Learn how to ride the bus. But he didn't have no money to ride the bus. So I was like, what the fuck? And then, after a year and a half of that, I was with them for 3.5 years. So after a year and a half of that, I was like, I can't do this no more. Like, I just can't. I can't. And so we ended up breaking up. It was one of the hardest things I had to do. And the saying, it's like, oh, well, if you love something, let it go, right? And if it comes back, then it was meant to be. Well, it was not meant to be for him and I, because he ain't back and I ain't trying to go back. So, but I wish him well. And he still lives in the little village that, I had to go outside of Trinidad to find a man or a boyfriend, my first boyfriend, because there was nothing available in Trinidad, nothing. So that's why I held out as a virgin as long as I did, because there was nobody worth fucking. Or even getting into a relationship for that matter. And I actually made my man wait a year before I had sex with him. So he showed me that he was, respectful of waiting, and, he didn't want to be pressure or put the pressure or be any of that. So that was really true love, and when I think back to relationship, I've only had three long-term relationships in my life, and when I think about them all, his was the real one. And so I'm really hoping to find another one like him, but not exactly like him, but like the love that I shared with him, and that it would be more lasting. So yeah, after that I've been single, and I was single for years, and I went to college. Unfortunately, I didn't graduate. The shitty part is that the school had shorted me like 3 credits to be a junior. So I ended up having to redo my sophomore year. So that set me back, because I was going to school. I mean, I started 2 weeks after I went to after I graduated high school. I went all the way through. I went probably for about 4 years straight without any breaks. I was doing summer school, or I was doing spring and fall and summer, all of them, because I just wanted to be done. And then in the end, it turns out that I didn't even fucking finish it anyway. And why? Because I ended up getting with a guy who was way younger than me, and I always had this motto that I would never date men or anyone younger than me, because I am a very mature woman. I am very strong in myself, and the younger guys just didn't have a good mentality, and I wasn't trying to be their mom or take care of them or baby them or anything like that. I'm not raising a boy, right? So the one time that I make that exception, I get pregnant. I get pregnant. Yep. So 5.5 months into a relationship with this younger guy, I get pregnant. And of course, he's charming and he's attractive. And ultimately, I really just wanted to have a one-night stand with him, because he was hot and I was drunk. And I'm like, yeah, I'll fuck you. Yeah, well, I didn't. It took a little bit after that, I didn't really do that, because he was not, I don't know what it was, but it was all the red flags were there, and it was Quinn, what the fuck? And then maybe 2 or 3 weeks into us seeing each other, talking to each other, he asked me a high schooler, do you want to be my girlfriend? I was like, oh yeah, I guess. I don't have anything else going on, because all I was doing was working. I was still going to college at the time. I hadn't gotten pregnant yet, but I mean, then by the time, I think before I got pregnant, I had ended a semester, a spring semester, and I wasn't gonna do another one, or I was gonna do another one, and then I ended up finding out I was pregnant, and then I had to get a full-time job, because this younger guy was not in a position for me to be able to stay home, be a stay-at-home mom. So I had to go get a full-time job, because now I'm pregnant. And so I go and get this job at Drive Time, which is a car dealership. I don't know if you are, Drive Time, approved. Oh, you can make your own payment. You can set your own payment. Yeah. All those commercials. So I worked there as an operations coordinator, and 2 or 3 weeks into the position, I found out I was pregnant. And the manager was like, what the fuck? Seriously? And my insurance hadn't even kicked in yet, because you had to wait 90 days. So that kind of was limited at the end, when I had my baby. I I mean, their insurance still paid for some, but it ended up being a pre-existing condition, so I didn't qualify for the short-term disability or the maternity leave and that, so that sucked. So I had to save up all my PTO to take 3 weeks off to be with my newborn baby. And it's funny because it's like, I feel like I did everything backwards, like, oh, I got this guy who I don't really like. Because honestly, I found out I was pregnant in November of '07. And I actually wanted to break up with him in October because he was acting like a little douchebag, calling me bad words and having me go pick him up at parties at 2:00 in the morning. And I'm like, no, like, you got yourself there, you get yourself home. And then he would talk shit to me and call me these horrible names. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm not going to tolerate this from this kid, right? He was literally a kid. I mean, he was like 2 to 3 years younger than me, but still the mentality was like he just graduated high school or something, basically. But I wanted to break up with him. And something inside of me was like, no, Quinn, don't break up with him. Like, he'll change. And I'm like, how is he going to change? I'm praying to God and I'm asking him, like, why? Why can't I break up with him? Like, why? What do you mean? What do you mean he'll change? Well, a couple of weeks later, I was probably already pregnant at that time because when I found out, I was already 8 weeks pregnant. So by the time I wanted to break up with him, I was already pregnant. So I'm like, oh, no wonder you said, oh, he'll change. And I mean, he did. He did change. He stepped up to be a father because I didn't have one. And that was all I wanted. I mean, I wanted him to be a father to my daughter because I knew what it was like to not be one. And he has good parents. His parents are still together and they've remained together and they've worked on themselves or on their relationships to, have a good relationship. It wasn't always like that with them. So he's always had his parents together. He's not ever experienced what I've experienced. So, he wanted to be there. And so he did change. He did step up and he changed to be an okay dad. He's okay. I'm not going to say he's dad of the year. That's for sure. I mean, he is a narcissist in many ways. And, it's everyone else's fault of why this is happening or whatever the problems are. But I mean, he did change. And he changed for the better, but we just weren't good people together. Like, we were too much alike and we just butted heads way too much. And I mean, I was with this for 5.5 years. So I got pregnant at 5.5 months and stayed for 5.5 years. And I saw in that relationship my childhood coming out in that relationship with the abuse. And we drank, and when we drank, we were not good people. We were not good to each other. I mean, sometimes it was really good and other times it wasn't, and shit has resulted in that. I mean, I wanted to break up with him and we were on a 2-week break, and because I was like, I just can't do this anymore. And then the one night, we drink and all over a social security number and who's going to claim Jazzy on the taxes if one breaks up, because we had a house together, but the house was in my name and his parents' name, and he never chose to put his name. He didn't want to, and then he wanted me to sign over my rights with a quitclaim deed, and I'm like, no, that is not happening. And so, I mean, the parents were like, we just want to give our grandchild a good home, and she can do that. We trust her to do that. And eventually, an altercation happened, and it's sad that shit had to go down the way that it did, because it ended up resulting in me spending 2 nights in jail. And I used to be so ashamed about saying that, like, for about 5 or 6 years after that happened. Like, I didn't talk about that shit. I didn't tell nobody that. Like, nobody knew. There was maybe a handful of my closest people at the time who knew what happened to me and how we ended up breaking up and stuff. So yeah, I went through some shit with that guy. It wasn't always good. It wasn't, but there were blessings. It was all blessings. And it's interesting how these circumstances and these experiences that we have each and every day, there is a blessing in there somewhere. If you're looking, or if you're wanting to see the brighter side of things, there it is there. If you keep looking at the bad parts and the pain and the hurt and the shame and the guilt and the regret, then that's what you're going to continue seeing. But if you try seeing and looking for the brighter side and the blessing of it, you'll understand, like, I had to go through that to become a stronger person within myself. Like, I had to go through those experiences to begin to commit myself to loving myself, to learning myself and being who I want to be, not because of what somebody thinks I should be, or family that tells me what I need to be, or the beliefs that I hold that aren't even aligned with who I am. So it's like, we have to go through these things. This is life. This is the experience of the human form. Like, you are a ball of energy. You are connected to everything, to consciousness. And we come here in this human form to experience our soul, to express our soul, because really we're just a ball of energy. How is that ball of energy gonna express itself? So we are given the opportunity each and every day to express ourselves, to express our soul, but we have so much of other people's shit, generations and ancestral shit buried on us that we have to unpack to get to our soul, to let that soul shine through and really express itself. And so that has really been my experience since leaving my daughter's dad. Since breaking up my family, I had to make the hardest decision of my life to break up my family. And because I had already come from a broken family, I didn't want to do that to my daughter. I didn't want her to come from a broken family. But when I saw that those limiting beliefs and those patterns were repeating in the relationship with my daughter's dad, I had to stop, because I knew how it fucked me up, and I wasn't even about to do that to her. And so it was best for me to get out of the relationship for the both of us, to end it for the both of us, because something could have really bad happened. I could be spending the rest of my life in prison and my daughter not have any parents because I murdered her fucking dad, So thankfully, I chose not to go down that route. I chose to get out while I could. And after my whole jail time, of course I had to do DV classes, and because alcohol was involved, I had to take breathalyzers, and it was thousands of dollars to go through this thing. And one of the best at the time, I thought it was bullshit, but one of the best advice that I had gotten from this counselor who was doing the DV classes, I tell her, he's still doing the stuff, he's still throwing my feelings in my face. He's not listening to me. He thinks I'm the one with all the problems and I'm the one who needs to be fixed, and he plays no part in why our relationship sucks, right? Why we can't get along with each other. Typical narcissist, right? So, I'm going on and telling her this, and she's like, well, you just accept him for who he is. Accept him for who he is, and a miracle will happen. And I'm like, what? Accept him for who he is. So accept him that he's an asshole, accept that he's a jerk, accept that he's throwing my feelings in my face and making it worse than what it is? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, I walked out of that thing like, that lady was crap. That was the worst advice I'd ever gotten. That's what I thought when I walked out of there. That was the worst advice that I could possibly ever get. And I'm like, and I fucking paid for this? What? So then, as time went on, and I kept saying, accept him for who he is, and a miracle will happen. Every time he'd make me mad, or every time he'd do something stupid or say something dumb, I'd go in my room and be like, accept him for who he is and a miracle will happen. Accept him for who he is and a miracle will happen. And one day I was sitting on my bed staring at the wall after I just cried, and I was like, I accept him for who he is and a miracle will happen. And what ended up happening was, I can accept him for who he is, but I don't have to be with him. And that is where the miracle happened. I'm just like, wow. Because you know what got me? What gave me the strength to break up my family and become a single mother was my mom. Because she was physically abused. She was physically hurt in her relationships. And after 15 years with my stepdad, she decided to leave. And she had 3 kids. She was a single mom of 3 kids. And I was like, if my mom can do it with 3 kids, I can do it with 1. If she can do it with 3, I can do it with 1. And I have her strength. I have her tenacity. I have her power, you know? I'm a powerful person. Oh, that was one of the hardest times of my life. And it's ever since then that I really, really, really started working on myself. Where I really started diving deeper into those beliefs, into those patterns. Because if that pattern of physical abuse, and because what ended up happening is I became the abuser. And I did not like that side of me. I did not like it at all, and I did not want to be that. So I started the deep inner healing work of releasing those patterns and not being that, being something different, being something more loving and more caring and more compassionate and more empathetic. Because if I didn't fix those issues within myself, those same patterns were going to come out in another relationship. Those same patterns were going to come out in another relationship. And so it was like, if I wanted to have the most loving, kind, understanding relationship where the person listened to my feelings, listened to what I had to say, and we worked on things and resolved the issues, then we wouldn't have resulted to violence, you know? And that was what I was taught. That's what the example was in my household, was violence. But the violence never solved anything. It just hurt us more. It never solved anything. So I couldn't do it anymore. I had to get out, and I had to give my daughter a better life than what I had. I did not want to allow those patterns for her. I didn't want to show her that. So I started doing the inner work. I started releasing those patterns. I continue to. This was 13 years ago. And I've gotten to such a loving place within myself. Like, I took 13 years to love myself, to undo all of the bullshit from my childhood, to go back through generations and ancestors to clear the patterns, clear the limiting beliefs, to clear the curses, to break the curses. Like, that shit stops with me. That ain't gonna continue down my line. It ends with me. And you know, as I'm doing this healing, I'm also healing the others too. Stay over here. I'm also I'm also helping others heal too, because as I'm creating the space, since we're all connected, I'm creating the healing and I'm doing the work. It's also healing those people that were involved as well. Shia, stay here. This dog park's pretty active. So anyway, if you don't want to continue living the life and the patterns that you're living, or, being in the toxic relationships, or being devalued, or having your feelings thrown in your face, then you need to start looking at yourself, because that's where it's starting. That's where it's at. It isn't the other person, because that other person has their own shit too, from what they got grown up with, what they were susceptible to, and the traumas that they experienced. So we're all reflections of each other. And, it's not easy. Healing is not easy. And going through that shit and having to face those unpleasant truths, like having to become aware or realize the truth that I was the abuser. That was one of the hardest things for me to accept about myself, because in reality I was, it was happening. I was doing that. That's how I was reacting to the situations. And it was like, there's better ways. And thankfully, going through those DV classes, like, I just wanted to go. I just wanted to go there and support the women that were in it, and help them be better, help them get out of their situation, help them to be stronger in themselves, to leave the abuser, even if they were or were not. Shia, get over here. Come on. Anyway, so that's the thing about life, is there's so much hidden from us, that it's a lifetime of uncovering and discovering. And it's not always butterflies and rainbows, I'll tell you that. I'd like to live in that world. Shia, get over here. Come. This dog, she's just as bad as a toddler, I swear. Just as bad as a toddler. She's 8 years old. But anyway, it's hard. It's not easy to heal from the hurt and the pain and the shit that we had to go through and the trauma that we experienced as kids. Nobody wants to go and relive that shit, right? But you know what? In order to get it moved out of our body, getting that energy moved out of our body, we have to in some way resurface it, and go through it. And, sometimes it's a lot more painful coming out than it is going in. Think about a splinter, think about getting a piece of cactus or something in your hand stuck somewhere, and it's so small and it didn't hurt as bad going in, but coming out, it fucking hurt, right? So that's like what healing's about. That's not what it's about, but that's an experience. And a lot of people don't want to do the work because they don't want to go through that pain again, which is totally understandable. Nobody does. But in order to heal from it and move the energy out and free yourself from those energies, you've got to do the work. You got to move. You got to go through it. So, I really encourage you, if you're on a healing journey, just like me, that's what my life is all about. The last 42 years have been all about undoing what has been done to me, what has been put on me or poured on me in lifetimes, even not even 42 years, like it could be 42 lives, or more. I don't know, but there's a lot to unpack, and there's a lot to discover and talk about. And there's a lot more to me than what I just shared with you today. And this is just the backstory. This is just telling you where I've started my journey to free myself, to love myself, and to be my true self, my true soul. So I just want to give some inspiration that you can do this. When you commit to yourself, you can do this. Because yourself at the end of the day is most important. It's not how you're making sure your kids are okay and your spouse is okay, your family's okay. Make sure you're okay, because you take priority too. And that was one thing that I really got to do and focus on, was putting myself first. And of course I took care of my daughter and, got her needs met and everything like that. But I had to put myself first. because I'm number one in my life. I'm the main character in this movie that I'm living, and I'm creating the movie, and I'm casting the people, I should have brought some tissue with me. I'm casting the actors. I'm casting the people in. And of course, there's going to be background people, like, did I necessarily write those hikers in on the trail today into this movie story? No. They just showed up. They were there. They're just background people. But I'm the main character. I'm number one. And so it's just, once you start putting yourself first, like, everything changes for you. Your life changes. You start setting boundaries. You're becoming more confident. You are being the best version you can possibly be. And that is what I'm doing. And healing and, getting to the bottom of all the crap that I had been poured on. I like to think of it as, you're going to have to wait. I like to think of it as concrete being poured on me. But the thing with concrete is you can break it up. And I've had to break down my world. I've had to bulldoze it. I've had to cannonball it. I've had to blow it up. I've had to disconnect from people. I've had to disconnect from families and end 30-year-old relationships. And oh my God, I need some tissue. I'm so sorry you have to see this. I've been sick too, so that's not helping either. I'm really sad that I didn't bring any tissue with me. Anyway, I'm sorry you had to see that. I apologize, but hey, it happens. My nose is running. Did you want to just see it coming out of my nose? I could have just left that there for you to observe, but I didn't. So you're welcome. But anyway, there's more to the story. That was just the start. That was just a little taste of Quinn. That was just a little taste of what I've had to overcome. And that was just a little taste, like I said, of the things that I've had to go through and the experiences that I've had to overcome, to become a better person, to find myself, to live in my true purpose, to live in my true self. That's my ultimate goal, is to have an unbreakable relationship with myself, an unbreakable bond with myself, with source, and reach the highest consciousness possible that I can. So I just want to encourage you and challenge you at the same time to start working on you. Yes, it's going to be difficult. Yes, you're going to find some truth out about you that you don't like, but you can always rewrite those. Nothing's set in stone. You can change your mind. You can make a different decision. You can believe something different, So go do the work, because we need to. If you look at where our world is right now, if you look at the shit that's going down, we need to fucking work on ourselves. We need to be better people within ourselves. We need to love ourselves. We need to find our own power within ourselves that is there. And with the year of the snake, the wood snake that just started today, happy Chinese New Year. It is all about shedding. And you got to go through all these different roughages to shed your skin. And you're already a new, beautiful skin underneath. So keep shedding. Shed. Let go, and release. It's like my mentor did a perfect example. It's like, oh, they did all the work and they put all the stuff in the trash bag, but they didn't take the trash out. So now you're just carrying this garbage bag of trash that doesn't even serve you for what? For fear of something, right? Let it go. Elsa tells you, let it go. So let it go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you go now. So I will be coming here on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Mountain Time for about an hour or so, depending on how much time I have, what I want to share, and how long that takes. But stick around, because this is where you're going to really get to know me. And I love connecting in person. I also want to know if any of you viewers out there have any similar stories or similar experiences. We are all connected, and believe it or not, we are. And we all somehow experience similar things, but maybe just in a different way. It's like somebody says the same thing. Everybody's saying the same thing, but it's in a different way. Not everybody, but anyway. I want you to just go work on yourself. Go let some shit go. Go face some hard truths that you've been denying or unwilling to face because of whatever reason, because of fear of judgment or criticism or being shunned or beheaded. I mean, I've been all of that in many of lives, so I definitely carry those things too, those beliefs, but I'm releasing them and I'm letting go, and I'm asking source, I'm asking the universe, and I'm asking my angels and guides to assist me in letting those things go and cutting those cords and revealing my true beauty that I already am. So you go out there, shed some skin, shed some layers, let some shit go, and be true to you. Start that relationship with you. Start working on you. Start changing the perspectives you have about yourself that are not true. Because in order to speak your truth and live your truth, you also got to face the truths within yourself. And sometimes those are really hard to face, trust me. So I love you. I'm so glad that I came here and shared this story with you. I don't normally put this stuff out, but you know what? It's time that people know my story. It's time that people know what I've overcome, to understand how I've gotten to the place that I am today within myself, which is peace, love, and happiness. No matter what I'm going through, it is really rainbows and butterflies in my world, because you know what? We may live on Earth, but we all live in different worlds. We all have our own worlds. We all have our own movie that we are creating, consciously or not. You're creating it. And I choose to create my life for what I want, for what I truly desire and wish for. And it already is. It's already happened, and I'm already living it. So thank you so much for sticking around and watching this. I know these videos are going to be long, but this is the Get to Know Quinn Hour, and it's an hour long because I got a lot to say. I got a lot to talk about. I got a long fucking story, so it's going to take about a long time to tell you what's up. So you go and have a gorgeous day, just like I am having at the dog park here. Check it out. Look, we got some mountains over here. Look at those mountains. Snow caps. So I'm going to go finish my walk, and then I will see you next week at Wednesday, 12:12. Wednesday, 12:12. Mountain time. See you then. Catch me outside.